I know I haven't been posting like I said I would. I've been busy working and I'm trying to make time to post some stories for you. Thank you for waiting. If you have any stories after this one, just leave it in a comment, the title of the story and who is made by. Thank you again to the story. Chapter 1. Klaus Michaelson snarled as he grabbed a girl of the village and tore into her throat, feeding on her blood until she died. Klaus sighed as he tossed the body away and was about to hunt for the next unfortunate soul to cross his path, when he felt a change within himself. Suddenly, his knee snapped inwards, causing him to scream in pain, and fall to said knee as it realigned itself. Klaus! Elijah yelled, rushing to his little brother's screams, but his father got there first and stopped him. What is happening to me? Klaus yelled before his ribs broke, causing him to grunt in pain. Father! Help me! Michael made no move to help Klaus, whose arms broke before they realigned themselves when Klaus suddenly snarled with a new set of fangs and glowing amber yellow eyes. He's a beast. An abomination! Michael yelled, glaring at Klaus as a bestial growl left his lips. Says the man who forced this curse onto his own family. Klaus shouted uncharacteristically at Michael. Mind your tongue, or I'll remove it. Michael glared as Klaus got to his feet, his eyes still glowing amber yellow and flashed a bright red for a split second. Klaus spat blood at Michael's feet, and sped from the clearing. Klaus! Elijah yelled, about to rush after Klaus. Leave him, Michael said, grabbing Elijah's arm. Come. I need to have words with your mother. Elijah looked at Michael, who began to leave, and turned to where Klaus had ran off to. Come, boy! Michael yelled, causing Elijah to reluctantly follow him. With Klaus. Klaus came to a stream and saw his glowing yellow eyes before he took off his vest and shirt and began to wash the blood from his face and clothes, but he paused and turned around as he heard whispering. He noticed a spiral birthmark of some kind on his torso bathed in the moonlight. At last, a voice whispered, causing Klaus to turn around and see his reflection in the water, only his reflection had glowing red eyes. I'm going mad, Klaus said, shaking his head. The reflection smirked and said, not yet, you aren't. I mean, am I in your head? Yes, but I assure you that I am indeed real. The name is Naruto. Naruto? Klaus asked, confused. It's a name more in common with the people to the east of this land you call home. Why are you in my head? I was given a new life here by the gods of my world after my old one ended, and was reborn as you, but something went wrong, probably because you hadn't yet awakened your true self as a werewolf. The awakening of your wolf gene altered some of your mental patterns, and with the moon overhead, I can finally contact you. Well, what do you want? It's time for us to merge. We should do it quickly and get away from these people. Naruto said. You want me to leave my family? No, Klaus said defiantly. I have no attachment to these people. Especially that whore of a mother and bastard of a stepfather you have. Naruto said. Don't talk about my mother that way. Klaus shouted, glaring at Naruto. She can't be trusted, kid. Step into the water and we can get started, Naruto smirked. Go away, Klaus shouted and sped away as Naruto sighed. Poor kid. He has no idea just how enhanced his bloodlust has gotten, but he'll find out. Naruto said and vanished from the water's reflective surface. Klaus put on his shirt and was about to go home when he caught the scent of blood. His new impulses and heightened craving for blood fully took over and he sped forward into the clearing where a group of fathers were teaching their sons swordplay. Next morning, Klaus sat in the forest, naked, covered in blood, and surrounded by the dismembered corpses of several men that he killed while he was transformed into a wolf. Elijah arrived and looked at him with sympathy as Klaus struggled to hold back his tears. Brother. Elijah asked, handing Klaus fresh clothes, which Klaus took from him, but he otherwise didn't move to get dressed. Instead, he just became even more overwhelmed by everything that had just occurred. What am I? Klaus asked, putting on the pants. How many? 15. Elijah said, causing Klaus to cover his face with his hands in horror and disgust at himself, before he saw Naruto sitting on a tree branch watching him. Only Klaus could see and hear Naruto. You slaughtered 15 villagers, brother. You tore them apart as though they were nothing at all. Elijah helped Klaus to his feet. Brother, what have I become? Klaus asks. The ultimate predator. You should be proud. You're even stronger than Michael now. Naruto called out but was ignored. You seem like the wolves in the village, cursed to turn when the moon is full. Elijah said before he pulled Klaus into a comforting hug and paused a moment before continuing, listen to me. Father is beside himself with rage. It seems this affliction can only be passed by a certain kind of conception. Klaus sniffled, and do our siblings share this affliction? Do you share this affliction? He asks. Elijah once again hesitated for a moment before ultimately shaking his head, no. I don't. He is not my father, is he? Klaus asked devastated. Told you he was your stepfather. Naruto said as he jumped from the tree. Elijah looked heartbrokenly at Klaus before placing his hand on the back of Klaus' head to force him to look him in the eye. You listen to me. This changes nothing. For any of us. We are here for you, as we shall be always. Klaus looked as though he was about to cry. Suddenly, the two heard the sound of someone approaching them, and looked to see that it was Tatia, the love of their life who had chosen Elijah. Tatia saw Klaus covered in blood and surrounded by bodies and quickly looked terrific so much that she immediately ran away. Elijah, flustered, chased after her to explain. Tatia, Tatia, Tatia. Elijah yelled disappearing. Well, that's not going to end well. Naruto said as he walked up behind Klaus. Ready to merge yet, kid? Naruto asked as Klaus looked up to him. You can't stay with those two you call parents. They'll lead you to ruin. And you won't. Before I was reincarnated, I spent 5 years traveling the land of my dead world. It was destroyed in a war that left me as the only surviving human. If I seem a tad bit uncaring towards your plight, it is because I'm not as selfless and naive as I once was. Yet, I've been with you your entire life, just never able to speak with you until now. Your whore mother is a liar and allows your stepfather to abuse you, yet with her magic she could have stopped him easily. Think about how much you suffered under Michael, and that was when he thought you were his son. Now you're the son of some wolf, the same beast that killed poor Henrik. The fault of his death will be placed on you, and Michael will let loose. Merge with me, and you will no longer have to cower in fear from some old man who can't satisfy his whore wife or anyone ever again. Klaus looked at Naruto who extended a hand, and slowly he was about to reach forward and take the hand before Mikhail appeared and snapped Klaus' neck. Michael looked at the bastard child and grabbed his leg before proceeding to drag him somewhere to be locked up till the ritual could begin. Later, Klaus groaned as he returned to life, and felt himself being bound to a cross. Looking up, his eye widened seeing Michael bind him to a cross as Esther prepared a spell, with Elijah standing off to the back. Quickly Klaus got his free arm loose as Michael tried to shackle it and tried to undo his other arm, but Michael grabbed it. Elijah. Elijah, hold him down. Michael yelled. Brother, please, don't let them do this to me. Klaus yelled, fighting against Michael. Do it now, boy. Now, Michael demanded before Elijah walked forward and helped Michael. Help me. Klaus pleaded and watched in shock as Elijah looked away. Esther walked forward with a heated moonstone soaked in Tatia's blood. Anima Markham. Iskoristi Vuka. She chanted as Michael and Elijah backed away. Mother, please don't. Klaus yelled, struggling, but Esther said nothing and without an expression used the moonstone and branded Niklas, who screamed in pain, causing Elijah to flinch, while Naruto took that as his cue and forced the merge, aka the takeover, to happen. Klaus screamed in pain as his forehead sizzled from the heated moonstone digging into it, and his soul being manipulated before he collapsed as he passed out. Esther stepped back with the brand. Is it done? Michael asks. Yes. Esther nodded, about to turn away but paused as black energy began to come off of Niklas like smoke before his hair changed, gaining a bright blonde color and spiking in a wild mane-like fashion. His body grew more muscular, he grew whisker marks, and his skin turned a bit darker. What is happening? Elijah asks. I don't know. Take him to his quarters, I'll consult with Ayana. Esther said, getting a nod from Elijah, who quickly unbound Niklas. Daylight. The being known as Niklas opened his eyes. He sat up and flexed his hands. Ah, feels good to have a body again. Shame about Niklas, but this was meant to be my body in the first place. Which revealed that it was Naruto and not Niklas. When the merge had happened, Naruto had absorbed Klaus's personality, and Naruto remained the dominant of the two. Perhaps if I had not been so selfless in my first life, I could have killed Sasuke, stopped the war, and had everything I desired, that I deserved. This time, I'm gonna be more selfish and do whatever I want. He thought to himself. Time to leave, he said as he got up and grabbed his clothes, putting on a black tunic, pants and boots. Naruto began to pack some essentials for his trip, and slung the bag over his back before he walked out of the room. Well, look who's up, Cole said, seeing his elder brother up, causing everyone to look at Naruto, who ignored them and continued for the door. Niklaus. Esther acts, only to be ignored as Naruto opened the door and slammed it behind him. Immediately Esther rushed after him, followed by the children. Brother. Elijah acts as Naruto headed off toward the exit of the village. Niklaus. Stop right now, Esther shouted, causing Naruto to stop with a sigh, and look back at the Michaelson family. Where are you going? Away from you. Naruto glared, the pain and anger of Niklaus shining through, and the lack of attachment Naruto had also shining bright. Shut your mouth. Whatever lie you wish to tell Esther, choke on it. You and that bastard you call a husband can burn in Muspelheim for all I care. Naruto said. Boy, Michael said, walking forward into the village as he prepared to vent his rage tonight, back into the house. No, Naruto glared, causing Michael to return the glare. You dare defy me, bastard? Michael acts, growling before he rushed Naruto, grabbing him by the throat and slamming him into the house. You are lucky to still be living. Naruto roared as he vamped out before he grabbed Michael's arms and forced them off of him, before he jabbed Michael in the neck. Michael gagged as he stumbled back before he gave a sloppy swing at Naruto, who raised a hand and slapped Michael's bicep and backhanded him with the same hand, before punching Michael in the chest. Stumbling back, Michael unsheathed a stake and stabbed at Naruto, who moved out of the way, and punched Michael in the spine, sending him stumbling forward. With an enraged shout, Michael swung the stake at Naruto, who threw up an arm blocking the strike before he punched Michael in the jaw, and gave a sharp jab to his liver. Michael coughed up blood as he swung his fist at Naruto, who caught it away while simultaneously backhanding Michael as he released Michael's hand and punched him in the jaw with a straight jab, and then followed it with a blow to Michael's torso, causing him to release his grip on the stake as he wobbled on his feet before a hook sent Michael flying through a tree, causing it to tumble. With a groan, Michael was about to get up but shouted in pain as his sword was drove through his back, piercing his heart. Who's the weakling now? Naruto, as he snapped Michael's neck. Naruto stood up as he pulled the sword out. That felt good. He sighed before he walked to his knapsack while flicking the blood off Michael's, now his, sword. Niklaus. Esther said as she tried to stop him, but when she touched him, he grabbed her hand, breaking it, and roared at her while vamped out. While he did this, a red glow appeared on his hands, and Esther felt her magic painfully drain away. He stopped after a moment and snarled before picking up his knapsack and speeding away, while everyone looked at Naruto in shock, as in less than a minute, he had defeated their father. That night, Naruto was at the village of werewolves, learning about their ways and history. Night had fallen when Naruto smelt blood and quickly raced to the source, only to find Ansel, the alpha of the werewolves, impaled on a spike, causing his eyes to widen. Naruto looked over Ansel and saw the resemblance between Niklaus and the man. With a growl, he sped out of the clearing toward his old home. Michaelson Cottage. The Michaelson children all had left as Michael had returned covered in blood and proceeded to yell at their mother. You made me think that whelp was mine. You've betrayed me, and because of you Henrik is dead. You can't put that on me. What happened with Henrik was an accident. Esther yelled, only to be slapped by Michael. An accident. The bastard took him from us, and when I find him, I will rip his head off. Michael yelled before he turned to leave, but heard a gurgle and turned to see that Naruto had arrived and was choking Esther with one outstretched hand, glaring at him. You murdered my birth father, Naruto growled, having actually looked forward to meeting Ansel. Release her, Michael yelled, rushing forward with the stake extended forward, but Naruto moved Esther in the path of the strike, so that Michael stabbed his wife in the heart, causing the couple to go wide-eyed. Now, you lost someone too. Naruto said, speeding off as Michael cradled Esther's corpse. Next day, Naruto was far away from the village. At a stream getting ready for his journey, brother. Naruto looked over his shoulder to see Elijah, and Rebecca looking devastated. Far from home, aren't you? Naruto asked standing up. Father has killed mother. Rebecca said launching herself into Naruto and crying as he frowned. He's run off in a rage, he may be looking for you. Elijah said walking up. Why are you two here? Naruto asks. We made a vow, always and forever. Rebecca said holding Elijah's hand and the two holding their free hand to Naruto, we stick together. Naruto nodded and took Elijah's and Rebecca's hands. France. 1002 AD. On a road that cut through a wooded area, a man drove a horse-drawn carriage with several other people in tow. The man driving the carriage stopped his horse and hopped down from the cart when he saw a wooden cart abandoned on the side of the road. He walked toward it to investigate what is going on. The man slowly approached the cart and peeks inside. As he looked at the cart, he found that the far corner is stained with quite a bit of blood. Suddenly, the man was yanked away from the cart at vampire speed. Moments later, a long-haired Elijah, who is in the middle of hiding the man's carriage with tree branches amidst the slurping sounds around him. Cole, are you quite done? Elijah asked Cole impatiently. Cole was feeding deeply on the man on the ground a few feet away. He groaned in exasperation and sat up. Behind him, Rebecca, Naruto, and Finn had just finished feeding on the driver's companions and were dragging their bodies toward the cart. Oh, bother, Elijah. Is all of this truly necessary? Brother, the road is a major thoroughfare. If the bodies are found, word of our presence will spread to Michael. Elijah asks. We have run through autumn and winter, through sleet and snow. Are we cursed to forever live in fear of our father? Rebecca asks in annoyance. I should say yes, sadly. Finn said. Finn, please. Niklaus. Elijah looked over at Naruto, who is petting the carriage driver's horse, for backup in their argument. He turned to Elijah and rebuked, I told you all to stop addressing me by that name. Naruto had officially changed his name from Niklaus to Naruto some months back. Niklaus's family, or rather his family, were having a hard time accepting that. You'll always be Niklaus to us, Nick, Rebecca said before she turned back to Elijah with no amusement. Do we have any idea where we're running to next? Cole finished his meal and walked up to his siblings, saying, why not just do what we've all thought of doing? Split up. We swore a vow, brother. Elijah said. Your vows haunt me more than father himself. Cole shouted, at least he can't chase us all. I say we take our chances. Finn hesitated a bit before saying, perhaps Cole is right. Cole was relieved to hear that and said, thank you, Finn. Yeah, I've always said, oldest is the most intelligent. Finn cut him off by saying, stop talking. He then turned to Elijah and said, I take no joy in our ascent, but I do wish to sleep in a bed. To bathe in a bath, to feed of proper food. If we divide. No, Elijah is right. We made a vow. Naruto interjected. He looks at Cole and Finn for a moment before moving, so he's standing in the middle of his siblings. Family above all, Elijah said. Always and forever. 2 days later, Naruto stopped feeding on his meal and tossed the corpse away, licking the blood off his lips. After a moment, Cole came up behind him and smacked him playfully on the shoulder. Who's ready for the next course? Cole asks. Behind them, Finn looked at them and shook his head exasperatedly. You are all filthy gluttons. And you remain ever the dullard. Cole countered. The victims the family killed this time appeared to be wealthy and of high status, as opposed to the commoners they had been feeding on. Rebecca stroked the dress of her victim longingly before pulling back. Such pretty clothes. What a shame they'll go to waste. Elijah sighs and said, Rebecca, we have discussed this. You discussed this. None of us had any say in the matter. Rebecca countered, this lot were traveling somewhere, their cart is full of silks and finery. 5 of them, 5 of us. Wherever they were off to, why could we not simply go in their stead? Quote, masquerade as nobles from a land we do not know and whose customs we cannot begin to understand. Ridiculous. Elijah scoffed. Rebecca scoffs in turn. You saw the castle down the road. It was practically a gala. If this bunch were headed there. She gestured at the bodies strewn across the ground around the 5 of them. Look at them. They're not any better than we are. We could live as they do. At least for a time. Think of it. Elijah, we can hide in plain sight. We could live ordinary lives. Suddenly Naruto hears something and holds up his hand. All of you, stop talking. Elijah focuses his hearing and realizes what Naruto realized. There was someone nearby whose heart is still beating. He walked over the victim's cart and pulled away a blanket, revealing a young, dark-haired man, who was terrified to see them. He jumped out of the cart and attempted to flee, but Cole and Rebecca vamped speed in front of him and blocked his way. Well, aren't you a handsome one? Rebecca said with a smile. Looks like dessert to me. Cole said in his bloodlust. Cole stalked toward the man, who immediately raises his hands in a non-threatening manner and attempts to stop him. Wait. I can help you. The man stuttered in terror. Rebecca looks at him curiously, and the man nervously continues, Now, I am the personal servant to the Count de Martel, and the barriers that you just mentioned. I was sent to escort these guests to his home for a lengthy stay. I know their customs, as well as the Count's habits. If you mean to pose as the family you've slaughtered here, then you'll need my help to carry out your ruse. Rebecca perked up at that. Please, can we keep him? Rebecca said hopefully to Elijah. Rebecca, no. What is our most important rule? Elijah asks. Rebecca rolls her eye and responds, Never leave alive anyone. The others join in, who has seen what we are. Thank you very much. A practice that has served us very well indeed. Elijah walked forward to end the man's life, but Finn grabs Elijah by the shoulder and holds him back before he can kill the man. She has a point. He may be of use. Finn said. Ah, a proper family squabble. Cole said excitedly. Naruto raises his hand to silence Cole and addresses his family. Let's put it to a vote. All those in favor of letting him live. Rebecca and Finn raise their hands. Those inclined to gut him. Cole acts. Cole and Elijah raise their hands. Well, Nick, what shall it be? Naruto looks at the terrified Lucian with a smirk. Later, Naruto had ultimately decided to let Lucian live and they arrived at the castle in the fine clothes of their earlier victims, where some sort of celebration is underway. All of the newcomers except Naruto looked nervous as they take in the grand interior of the castle, and Lucian fills them in on the details they need to know to blend in effectively. There. See the Count de Martel. Lucian mentioned. You address him as, Your Grace. All the other nobles as, My Lord. And, when you speak to the Count, you should certainly speak of hunting. He loves his horse and his hounds. He respectfully looked sideways at Rebecca, who is so anxious she looks as though she may throw up. And, bow deep, Lady Rebecca. The Count relishes a healthy cleavage. Lucian said hesitantly, so as to not offend her. Rebecca nods, gulping nervously, and when Lucian sees Finn, Cole, and Elijah looking above them at the ceiling, he becomes even more worried. And, for God's sake, stop looking up. Lucian quickly pushes away a stray hair that has fallen from Cole's ponytail and anxiously leads them toward the Count's throne. Behind him, Cole leans forward to smile and whisper in Lucian's ear. Touch me again, and I'll tear your arm straight off. Cole growls. Naruto clasps Cole's shoulder tightly and pulls him back. Behave, Cole, because if we get caught, I'll rip all of your teeth. This isn't going to work, is it? Rebecca axed pale. Just speak as we practiced. And know that you look lovely, my lady. Lucian smiled, causing Rebecca to smile at him in appreciation as Naruto turned to whisper to Elijah. You are concerned, brother. Naruto acts. We're placing our lives in the hands of a stranger, Niklaus. Elijah said as the group finally made it to the throne of Count de Martel, and Lucian bowed dramatically in front of him before making introductions. Lucian, you were sent to fetch the Count de Guise. The Count frowned. Indisposed, my grace. Lucian said before he paused awkwardly. Gout. He added before he gestured to the Michaelson siblings behind him before stepping aside so they can come forward. May I present his children? The Lords Finn, Niklaus, Elijah, and Cole. Lucian pointed to each of the men in turn, who bowed their heads respectfully to him, before Lucian turned to introduce Rebecca, also, the lovely Lady Rebecca. The Count looked at the Michaelson suspiciously and stood to his feet as he approached them. "Your father never mentioned you to me in all our dealings," he said. The siblings looked nervously at each other for a moment before Elijah finally got his bearings and stepped forward to address him. "Yes, Your Grace, do forgive us. Father was forever distant with his travels, and, we were largely raised by servants. However, I do know that Father would consider it a glorious honor that we should be introduced to society by your noble hand, Your Grace," he said with a bow as a more confident Naruto stepped forward. "Your Grace, I look forward to hearing tales of your hunting escapades," Naruto said before he turned and gestured to Rebecca. "May I present our sister?" Rebecca gulped anxiously and stepped forward, smiling as widely as her nerves would allow. "Rebecca de Guise de Roquefort Francais." Rebecca introduced before she bowed so deeply that the Count got a very good look at her bosom, which satisfied him quite a bit, charmed. Realizing that they have successfully made their way into the castle, Naruto smiled and looked over at Lucian, who looked relieved. Later, at the party, Lucian was standing at the side of the room when Naruto approached him to talk. "You've proven to be an immense help to us, Lucian," Naruto said. "Oh, of course, my lord," Lucian said bashfully. "Although I could not help but notice that you don't seem at all disturbed about leading us into your master's home," Naruto noted. Lucian sighs nervously and looks over at Count de Martel, who was across the room talking to Elijah. "My master is a cruel drunkard who torments his minions for sport. Beggars who seek supper. Vassals who cannot pay a debt. Like my own father," Lucian said in low anger. Naruto nodded in understanding as Lucian becomes angrier. "All these Gentile folk, behind their silks and their jewels, are slavers. Killers. Whatever evil you are, you walk among greater evil still. What do I care if you killed a lot of them?" Suddenly, the attendants of the party began to whisper amongst themselves as a man and a woman enter the room. Naruto turned to see what everyone was talking about and was immediately taken by the beauty of the woman before turning back to Lucian. The woman had green eyes and straight red hair with thin eyebrows and a wide smile that was quite endearing. She looked quite youthful, with her slim features and bone structure. He asked Lucian, "Who are those two?" The man and woman walk across the room to greet the Count. Lucian seemed to notice who Naruto was talking about and said, "Oh, the Count's children, the Lord Tristan and the Lady Aurora. She is exquisite," Naruto said. Her beauty and her hair reminded him a bit of his mother, Kushina, though Kushina had violet eyes. Her eyes reminded him of Sakura, though Aurora's were a few shades darker than Sakura's. It was like the best of both worlds all wrapped into one. Aurora caught Naruto's eye and smiled, which did not escape Lucian's notice. Both Naruto and Lucian continued to stare intently at her as she greeted various nobles throughout the room with Tristan. "Ah, yes. As her brother is wicked, might I suggest that you avoid them completely?" Lucian said, though it was also because he was not comfortable with Naruto staring at Aurora. Naruto didn't seem to notice, and if he did, he didn't care. But would she really be a threat to one like me? Naruto pondered. The Lady Aurora doesn't need teeth to tear a man's soul out, one only needs stare in her eyes to be lost. Lucian says longingly, but Naruto didn't notice or did not care. 8 months later, a celebration of some kind was being held outside the Count de Martel's castle, where the entire court had gathered in the yard. Music was being played on instruments nearby, and guests mingled at the various stations. There were tables laden with fruit, bread, and cheese set up next to a practice field, where several women, including Aurora, were kneeling in the grass together. The women watch with interest as Elijah and Tristan practice throwing axes at wooden targets propped up several meters away, clapping in amusement when their axe hit the target. Near one of the tables, Naruto was sitting in a chair, whittling away on a wolf head figurine with an exquisite soldier on horseback figure near his feet. During the last 8 months, when he wasn't trying to build stronger family ties with his new siblings and exploring his romance with Aurora, Naruto was experimenting with their powers. He had begun meditating and was close to unlocking the deeper secrets that lesser vampires would have access to when they reach the age 500 years old. He was close to unlocking them. He also found out that their blood could heal many injuries, and if someone died with their blood in their system, they would come back to life in a transition state, where they had to feed on human blood to complete the transition from human to vampire. If they didn't drink within 24 hours, they died. He hadn't let any of his experiments live yet. He had also discovered that through direct eye contact and exertion of willpower, he could make humans and lesser vampires do his bidding, though he had discovered that he could not force his fellow originals to do his bidding. He called this ability compulsion. He took advantage of this by using his compulsion to compel the local blacksmith and goldsmith to teach him how to work metal and gold. He also discovered that he could read minds, cast illusions and manipulate dreams, though he had to be touching them in order to do that. Which really made the ability a lot less useful than it could be. He had also come across a witch and figured out what he did to his mother when he killed the witch by accidentally draining her of all her magic. He found a couple more and practiced until he could siphon magic at will, and then killed them and took their grimoires, so he could practice magic. Turns out, that when he came to this world, he lost his chakra but gained siphoning instead. Which meant that he could now practice magic, ultimately making him a tribrid, though he preferred to be called the original hybrid because it rolls off the tongue better. Using these new powers, he even fashioned himself a custom lapis lazuli ring, even though he didn't need it, since his witch and werewolf sides negated sunlight damage, though he preferred it. Naruto almost wished he could compel Cole. His sloppy eating was starting to annoy him and the rest of his siblings, since they always had to clean up the messes he made. Lucian caught Aurora's eye from across the yard and smiled at her. She returns the smile, which did not escape Tristan's notice, and when he turned to see Lucian staring at Aurora, he became visibly annoyed. Aurora does her best to pretend like she wasn't interacting with him before Tristan walked away. Lucian timidly approached Naruto, and he smiles when he sees what he's making. Impressive work, my lord. Lucian compliments. Bah, it is a trifle meant to alleviate my boredom. But, I'll take the praise along with the word of a friend. Naruto smiled as he put down his work. Lucian looked both anxious and excited. He said bashfully, "It is as a friend that I come to you now. There is something that I must ask of you." Naruto gave him a wary look and watched as Lucian pulls a folded piece of parchment from the satchel attached to his belt and held it out to him. "For the Lady Aurora. If you would deliver this to her in secret, I would be eternally grateful." Lucian requested. "Are these declarations of love?" Naruto said curiously with a fake smile. "It's a bold move." Naruto downed the rest of his wine, unable to mask his annoyance at this request. Lucian became even more nervous as he once again looks over at Aurora, who was standing next to Tristan and talking to several other women. Tristan had his arm around Aurora's shoulders, and both are smiling as they socialize. "Oh, we shared affection for one another as children. But, since then, my station in life has prevented me from declaring my intentions," Lucian said. He was still staring at Aurora, who sees him watching her and smiles at him. "If she would leave this place with me," Lucian said. Naruto got up and stopped Lucian mid-sentence. "Not an idea I would advise. Besides, my family needs you." Lucian squirmed anxiously and hesitated before he replied, "Well, your family's stay here cannot last much longer anyhow. Not given your brother Cole's decadence. The local villagers believe they are beset by demons. Soon, you'll need to run. Aurora and I can run with you. Aid you in your endeavors." Lucian held out the note again and pleaded, "Niklaus, please, I would give her the note myself, but Tristan's jealousy is tyrannical. I cannot go near her. But you need not fear him, or anyone." Naruto hesitated since he liked Lucian well enough and wanted to help him but could not for obvious reasons. He sighs and hesitates for a moment before taking the folded note from Lucian. Later that night, Naruto did give the note to Aurora secretly, but she threw it away after reading as she only saw Lucian as friend. Plus, how exactly do you explain to Lucian that Naruto and Aurora have been in a secret relationship for almost 7.5 months? Anyway, He told Lucian that Aurora was given the note, but she rebuffed his advances, only seeing Lucian as a friend, and Naruto hoped the matter was settled as he did not like the thought of compelling people he considered friends if he did not have to. Aurora paces around her bedroom, eventually slipping into a small alcove near the door and smiling to herself. After a moment, a man comes up behind her and gently squeezes her shoulder before spinning her around to face him. Aurora gasps when she sees it as Naruto and smiles as she caresses his cheek with her hand. Naruto then quickly cups the back of her head and kisses her, flipping them so her back's against the nearby wall as they continue to make out. Unfortunately for the couple, they forgot that Lucian was a hopeless romantic and didn't think that he would seek Aurora out for to hear the answer from her own lips. Naruto and Aurora were making out even more passionately, and just as they were about to tear each other's clothes off and have passionate sex against the wall, Lucian walks into the hall and finds them in the alcove in the middle of their fierce kissing. It's clear by the expression on Lucian's face that he feels betrayed and hurt, and Naruto and Aurora both look guilty, though Naruto wasn't really all that guilty. "No," Lucian breathed in horror. "You're not supposed to be here," Naruto said. Lucian, now furious, rushes toward Naruto and points at him angrily. "I trusted you. You can hardly blame me for you not believing the truth when you heard it. I didn't tell you about this because I knew you would react this way," Naruto said. Aurora, looking terrified, walked toward Lucian, grabbing Naruto's hand and pulled him along with her. "Quiet. I'm meant to be in prayer. If anyone finds you here." Naruto heard the guards approaching with his super hearing. "It's too late. The guards are coming. My handmaids must have seen him enter. If the guards know, then Tristan himself will be alerted." Aurora panicked. She looked at Naruto in horror, but he takes her hands and squeezes them comfortingly. "Let me deal with them." Aurora shakes her head. "No. No, Niklaus, he is my brother." Lucian was so upset that he has broken down into tears and was still enraged by what he has just seen and turns to Aurora. "Do you think he cares? Do you not know what manner of men you are with? He is a beast." Naruto steps in front of Lucian with his back to Aurora so she didn't see his face vamped out. "That's enough out of you, my friend." Lucian becomes terrified and backs up as much as he can. "We are not friends." A still panicked Aurora desperately grabs Naruto's hand again and tries to pull him away. "Go. Now, please. By the window, the same as you came," she said in panic. Aurora was breathless from fear, and the devastated Lucian collapses onto the floor and sobs as Klaus caresses her cheek one last time before he leaves. "Lucian, follow me," Naruto called out, but Lucian is too devastated to move. Before Aurora can convince him to leave, Tristan walks into the room with two armed guards to find his sister holding his hands, and he is stunned and appalled by the sight of them together. "You," Tristan said in anger before he turned to his guards, "take him." Torture chamber. 30 minutes later, Lucian was bound by his wrists in a cellar in the de Martel castle while Tristan viciously whips him across the back, causing Lucian to scream in agony. Lucian gripped the restraints around his wrists as hard as he could to fight through the pain of his back, which is bloodied and raw from the whip. He was also crying tears as Tristan had cut his mouth open from ear to ear. The sound of his screams drew Naruto and Elijah's attention, and the two brothers eventually enter the cellar to investigate. Elijah is horrified while Naruto maintains a stoic expression at the sight in front of them as Tristan turned to greet them with a smug smile, his face splattered with Lucian's blood. "Have you two come to watch as Lucian receives his punishment? I fear I'm being a touch lenient, given his intentions for my sister," Tristan smugly said, making no attempt to hide his contempt. Naruto was not cool with Tristan torturing Lucian for being romantically interested in Aurora and said, "Why torture a loyal servant? I'm sure this is all a misunderstanding. One that remains outside your concern. As son of the Count, I may discipline staff as I see fit. Should you take issue, then I'll need to remind you that you are a guest," Tristan coldly reminded. Elijah is torn between helping Lucian and exposing himself. Tristan goes back to continue whipping Lucian, but Naruto grabs his wrist. "Step away from him. Now," he growled lowly. Tristan panted for a moment then looked at the two vampires in amusement. I know what you are. Our house servants speak of demons hunting in the night. I, myself, interviewed one such maiden. Quiet pretty. Thus far, the only survivor of these attacks. Elijah, upset by this news, closes his eyes and sighs as he considers their next move. Naruto on the other hand is pissed that Cole exposed them and resolved to beat his ass when he saw him next. Tristan continued, I asked what manner of creature had hunted her. She said she was certain it was the Lord Cole, but with the face of a beast. Your entire family sought refuge here, claiming to be noblemen, when, in fact, you are fiends. I can only surmise that you are hiding, which means you're afraid. Somewhere out there, something is even more savage than you. Elijah was anxious, but Naruto gripped Tristan in a choke hold, causing him to gasp in shock and pain as Naruto vamped out. This is not going to end well for you, he growled. Tristan gasps for breath and says, do so at your peril. But, should any misfortune befall me, know that I have instructed my fastest riders to spread word of your presence here. Whomever seeks you would most certainly hear the news. You arrogant fool, Naruto said as he broke Tristan's wrist and slammed him against the wall, causing Elijah to become panicked. You think that you can threaten me? I was born into pain. My stepfather beat almost daily as I grew up and told me that I was worthless but persevered. I suffered through sleet, snow, and cold, while you grew up as a pampered noble, never having faced a real problem you couldn't solve with your daddy's soldiers or money. You are nothing compared to me. And besides, I don't need to kill you to protect my family's secret. Naruto growled as he began to compel Tristan. Who else knows about our secret? Just myself and the maiden that escaped your brother, Tristan said as Naruto looked into his mind to see the face of the woman Cole stupidly left alive. You're going to forget everything you know about my family and I being monsters. You will instruct your fastest riders that your previous orders are no longer necessary as you were wrong and the poor woman lied to you in an attempt to slander us. If you find any survivors of future attacks, you will disregard any talk of one of my family being monsters and kill them. Also, you are done torturing Lucian as he has been tortured enough. You're also not going to remember this compulsion. Do you understand? Yes, Tristan said robotically, I will do as you command. Then go, Naruto said as he let him go and Tristan walked out. Elijah was stunned at what he witnessed. Brother, what? We have many abilities besides physical prowess and immortality, Elijah. I've been experimenting with them and I will share what I have discovered with you and the family soon. Naruto said as he took the goblet of water nearby in one hand. He bit his hand and let some of his blood pour into the cup. Until then, I need you to follow him and make sure he does what I told him to. I still don't know the full limits of this mind compulsion. What are you going to do with young Lucian? Elijah asks. I'm going to heal him. Naruto said and Elijah walked off after a moment. Naruto released Lucian from the ropes binding his wrists to the walls. The wounds on his back and mouth are still bleeding profusely, and Naruto hands him the goblet of water laced with his blood. Here, this will help. Naruto said. Lucian tried to drink the blood-laced water, but he spits it out as soon as it touches his wounds. What did he do to me? Lucian sobs. He saw his reflection in the water and drops the goblet onto the floor in horror. Naruto, feeling kinda guilty as he should have just compelled the poor kid, pulls Lucian into a gentle hug. I'm sorry. I should have been more considerate with you. I should have had Aurora tell you in person. I'm sorry that my decision to try to spare your feelings some led to this, but what I told you was the truth, Naruto said as he compelled Lucian to accept the truth. While he was much more selfish than his first life, he still cared for those he considered friends and family and would not easily abandon them. He bit thumb drawing blood and wiped his bloody thumb against Lucian's dehumanizing cut on his mouth. It immediately begins to heal. Lucian gasps in shock, and pulls away in surprise. Within moments, the lacerations on Lucian's back have healed themselves as well due to exposure to Naruto's blood. Lucian, horrified, instantly backs away from Naruto in confusion. I am like you. Lucian flees the room, still covered in the blood from his now healed wounds and gripping the blade left by Tristan. Naruto saw it but decided not to go after him. Lucian made his way into Aurora's chambers, where Tristan and Aurora are talking with their hands clutching each other. When Aurora sees him, she gasps in shock, and Tristan spins to see what has spooked her. As soon as he sees Lucian, the color runs from his face. Tristan! Aurora shouted in horror. How? By all that is damned, are you free? Tristan asks, having forgotten that he left him in the company of an original, due to the compulsion on him. Lucian, furious, lunges for Tristan, but before he can even touch him, one of Tristan's guards stabs him through the chest from behind with his spear. Lucian gasps for breath one last time before collapsing dead to the floor. Tristan does not seem at all upset by this turn of events, but Aurora is clearly upset by the sight of her dear friend being killed in front of her. The guard stabs Lucian in the back one last time to ensure that he's dead and watches as blood spills from his wounds in a puddle around him. 30 minutes later, Naruto and the siblings stood around a pyre for Lucian. They placed 2 gold coins over his eyelids before grabbing 2 nearby torches. Naruto had gathered them to witness his rebirth, but they all thought it was a funeral. You are certain that your blood healed him, Nick? Rebecca asks. It did. The wounds closed themselves. Naruto said. So then, we may only heal the living. Elijah asks. Well, our blood has a peculiar effect on those that die with it in their system. Naruto said, confusing the other 4 vampires. What do you mean, Niklaus? Finn asks. Should happen right about now. Naruto said. As if responding to his commands, Lucian bolts upright with a gasp and is overcome by a coughing fit as Naruto's siblings are stunned into speechlessness. After Lucian has recovered, he looks at Naruto in confusion. What? Lucian said. Naruto smiled at the sight. And Nick, what is happening? Rebecca asks. All will be explained in moment, dear sister. Naruto said as he turned to the forest. You can come out now. A woman, one that Cole had fed on, came into view. It was the same one that got away and told Tristan about Cole. She came up between Naruto and Lucian and stood perfectly still. Lucian, Naruto said, getting his attention as he compelled his friend, when I cut her, I want you to drink her blood until she dies, and then stay put. There are some things we all need to discuss and I don't want you running off just yet. Lucian nods as he stands up and Naruto cuts the side of the girl's neck, drawing a little blood, causing his siblings' true faces to come out. He pushes the girl Lucian's arms as Lucian slowly inches toward her neck and licks a little blood off. Lucian's vampire face emerges as he completes his transition and bites down hard, draining every drop. Now, when he's done feeding, there are a few things we need to discuss. But first, Naruto said as he sped forward and punched Cole in the face, sending him flying through tree. You stupid, irresponsible, gluttonous moron. Naruto said as he punched Cole several times in the face, knocking out all of his teeth. Niklaus, what are you doing? Why are you acting like father? Rebecca pleaded. Naruto pulled the in pain and whimpering Cole up and made him look at Naruto. Listen to me, I love all of you as any sibling should, but Cole's sloppy eating methods almost exposed us. That woman that Lucian is feeding on was a victim of Cole's that he forgot to kill. She told Tristan about it and he threatened to expose us. Luckily, with my mind compulsion, I made him forget, and now Lucian has tied up that loose end. Lucian came into view as the other siblings were glaring at Cole while his teeth regrew. Ah! Ha ha ha! Lucian breathes in at the euphoric sensations he's feeling from being a newborn. I take it you're not mad at me anymore, Lucian. Naruto asks. No, ha ha ha. Not anymore. Ah, this change in me. Ah, woo. I feel as though I have left the fog of winter to enter the most glorious springtime. Lucian smiles, overwhelmed by the heightened emotions and euphoria of drinking someone's blood. Yes, vampirism is like that for newborns. Naruto said in approval and everyone looked at him. Vampirism, Niklaus? Finn asked in confusion. Well, our species does need a name. Naruto shrugged. I figure since we are the first generation, as Michaelsons will be called the original vampires. While vampires like Lucian and anybody we sire will be just vampires. Now then, Naruto said as he addressed them all, I'm going to teach you all what I have learned so far, and we are going to be changing some things, like how we feed on humans. This, feeding until they die, thing isn't sustainable long term, as Cole proved. Once I'm done teaching you all, I'll show you the new method that I call, Snatch Eat Erase. Chapter 2 Leaving Marseille. Naruto was in one of the chambers for the Demartels. He was teaching Lucian how to properly learn, Snatch Eat Erase. It had been nearly 2 weeks since he turned Lucian. Unfortunately, his pal was having trouble with his new hunger and emotions. No, no, no. That's too sloppy of a bite. Naruto groaned before he walked up to the girl and took her from Lucian. Here, like this. Naruto says as he heals the girl up and then bites the other side of her neck and slowly drinks from her. And unlike Lucian, who had blood flying everywhere, only a small trickle of blood escaped Naruto's lips down his victim's neck. After drinking for a few moments, Naruto pulls off the girl with a small trail of blood down the right side of his mouth, and heals her up again before inspecting her. He gives her back to Lucian and says, now like I did. Slower drinking makes less of a mess, lets you drink more, and lets you enjoy it more. Lucian bites her again and tries to drink more slowly, and he is rewarded with less of a mess this time. Naruto smiles proudly at his pupil's progress, but that smile drops when he sees Aurora enter the room. She was horrified and stunned speechless by what she's just seen. Lucian, concerned, vamp speeds toward Aurora, but before he can get close, Rebecca vamp speeds into the room out of nowhere and blocks his path as Lucian glares at her. When Rebecca turns back to check on Aurora, her newborn vampire hunger gets the better of her, and her vampire face comes out, scaring the human noblewoman so much that she shrieks and runs away. Rebecca, terrified, turns back to Naruto with a panicked look on her face, and Naruto decided to let Aurora leave. Nick, I'm sorry. Rebecca tried to apologize but Naruto held up his hand. Take Lucian back to his den. I'll handle this, Naruto told her as he walked past them. Next morning, Aurora was laying on her side in the middle of a patch of wild lavender, sobbing from what she witnessed the last night. Naruto watches her sadly from a hill far behind her, holding a folded piece of parchment with writing on both sides in his hand. He had planned to give this to her today anyway. Naruto vamp speeds toward Aurora, who hears the wind blow past her and sits up in alarm. However, Naruto actually ran past her, leaving behind only the letter he had written for her. She opens the letter and begins to read it. I never meant for you to know me. I never meant to let anyone in. But then, perhaps I should not have kissed you. Not the first time. Certainly not the second. Or the many times after. There is a light in you so pure and innocent, it makes me feel like the man I once was. And forget the monster I am. I am forced to feed on blood to survive, and have damned another to my fate. You've seen what we do. We feed. We kill. But what I am, you won't find in your castle's library. While I named our species as vampires, my family and I are the first. But despite all that, I am still a man. With a man's desire and a man's love. No matter what may come between us, know that I love you. Aurora finishes reading it and her heart is touched deeply, even as tears from earlier fall freely from her eyes. That night, Naruto was at their usual meeting spot, waiting patiently for her to either come alone or come armed with guards. Naruto hears the door open and close gently, hearing only one pair of soft feet that he recognized. He turned around and smiled lovingly at Aurora as he got up and walked to her slowly. They stopped a few inches apart from each other. The air was thick with emotion, waiting to boil over. Finally, Aurora spoke with the most loving expression she could muster, I love you as well. She pulled him down for a passionate loving kiss. They continued to kiss passionately as Naruto lifted her up in the air, carried her back to her room so they could continue expressing their love in private. 1.5 hours later, Naruto and Aurora are lying naked in Aurora's bed after having just finished making love. Naruto is still braced on top of her as he smiles happily. Oh, wow, Aurora sighed happily. Naruto had been holding out on her previously in order to not expose himself. Yet with his secret as a vampire now known to her, he was not holding out on her as much when it came to their lovemaking. Now, that was fun. Naruto said as he kissed from Aurora's shoulder up to her mouth. Delightful, delirious, delicious fun. Aurora hums happily, And yet, you would appear to want more. I fear I've not satisfied you. Quote. You need not fear anything, my love. I am immensely satisfied. 'Tis not your fault that I have tremendous stamina. Naruto said with a smile, and he leaned closer to her face. Naruto kisses her on the lips and Aurora giggles while Naruto laughs. Then, Aurora suddenly flips them over so Naruto is on his back against the pillows while she straddles his waist. I'm not fragile, you know. You do not have to treat me so gently. She told him. Now that she had a taste of what he could really do, she wanted to feel all of it. He was still holding out on her, but for a good reason. Oh Aurora, I do not wish to hold back when I'm with you. Naruto whispered as he sat up and wrapped his arms around her waist. I want to love you with every ounce of strength in my body when we are together like this. But, Naruto said, I have to remember what I am. I am so strong that I can decapitate a man with a single slap and tear their bodies apart with little to no effort. I treat you, not as cracked glass that will break at the slightest touch, but as treasured lover that requires a gentler and more loving touch than what I use for my prey. Well, then make me like you. Do to me what you did to Lucian. Aurora requested of him. Naruto is actually a little surprised at her request, not expecting it, then groans as he lays back. Oh Aurora, you do not know what you ask of me. Naruto sighed. He did want to turn her, but he was still unsure about it. With Lucian, it had been simpler. He knew Lucian would go after Tristan once he was healed up, and he saw no reason to stop him. But then again, Lucian was starting to show signs of mistrust towards Naruto. Well, I know we'd no longer have to hide our love, not from my father, my brother. Not from anyone. If I were like you, I would be beholden to no one, and we could be together, truly, with no boundaries. Aurora said, not truly understanding what he would be doing to her if they went through with it, but enough that they wouldn't have to hide their secret affair from the world. Aurora, listen to me, Naruto said as he stared her in the eye. Yes, there are benefits to being a vampire. Yes, you'd be immortal apart from a few things, immune to the disease, and the throes of time. You would become strong and fast like my family, and you would experience everything in a new light. But there are downsides as well. First is that you would be a normal vampire. A decapitation or having your heart ripped out will still kill you. Werewolf venom is toxic and lethal to a normal vampire, and a wooden stake in the heart is fatal. The sun will burn you to death without a daylight ring. Vervain burns at the touch and prevent humans from being compelled if they wear it or ingest it. And we have to be invited into private homes, otherwise we literally cannot enter. Not to mention, you need to consume blood, and there's the fact that your emotions will be heightened beyond that of a human. And I'm fairly certain a vampire can't have children. Truly. She acts. With how many times a week we make love. You should have gotten pregnant by now. The fact that you are not, I can only assume that means that vampires are incapable of creating new life. Naruto sits up again so his torso is pressed against Aurora's, and he reaches up to run his fingers through her waist-length red curls. Besides, you are beautiful and amazing just the way you are. Take, for example, these lovely long locks. Now, how did you manage to capture the scent of a summer's day in the tresses of your hair? Do you know why I fell for you, Aurora? It wasn't for your beauty, though that did draw me to you at first. I fell for you because of your compassionate, kind, selfless, and loving nature. Naruto said as he cupped her chin and they both looked lovingly into each other's. You don't need to be a vampire for me to love you. Aurora looks at him intensely for a moment before kissing him. She pulled a bit and whispered sadly, but I still want it. To be a vampire so I can be with you. Otherwise, I will grow old and die while you remain unchanged. I suppose that is the inevitability of being in love with a vampire. You either turn so you can be with them, or you leave to spare them the heartbreak. Naruto thought solemnly. Okay, Naruto said, but before I do turn you, I want you to think long and hard about what I told you tonight before you make a final decision. I want you to be absolutely certain that this is what you want. Promise me. I promise, Aurora said. Now, let us turn our thoughts towards more pleasurable ones. Naruto said as he laid back on the bed and she leaned down and kissed him. 2 weeks later, Naruto was in a dark cell experimenting on compulsion. Okay, so let's try something here. When I show you my vampire face, don't scream or move a muscle. He compelled the woman. He showed his face and she did nothing. Naruto then placed his hands the side of her head and they glowed red as he siphoned the magic compulsion away. He then showed his vampire face and this time, the woman screamed and tried to run. Naruto bit her throat and covered her mouth while he drank her blood. Later that night, Aurora was sitting in the chapel, sobbing loudly and sniffling into the sleeves of her dress. After a moment, Naruto walks in with a large bouquet of wild flowers. I always thought the day of one's birth was an event to be celebrated. Naruto said in concern. Aurora quickly wipes the tears from her cheeks. She sniffles, and yet, I wish I'd not been born. Naruto sits down next to her on the bench and looks at her with concern, placing a hand on hers and stroking the back of her hand lovingly. What saddens you so? Aurora continued to cry, which made Naruto worried. Aurora, what is it? Please, tell me. He pleads with her. She told him through he sniffles, the day of my birth is no occasion for joy. My mother died giving birth to me. That's my first act on this earth, was to kill the one who gave me life. It makes me cursed and broken, an abomination. Aurora breaks into sobs once again, and Naruto wraps his arm around her shoulders and holds her hand in his to comfort her. You believe that you are cursed, but you are not alone. There is a thing that I have done that I never told my family. Naruto took a deep breath and told her a condensed version of the truth about how Esther died, where he had been there when Michael killed her. And so I made him kill her. Naruto revealed. Aurora gasped in shock from this confession, and Naruto's voice grew quieter as he continues talking until it becomes only a whisper. Twice she birthed me, once as a bastard, and then once as a vampire. She crippled me in life so I couldn't defend myself against Michael and again from becoming who I was meant to be, and then she turned her back on me in shame, as if it was my fault for how I was born. And so, I made Michael kill her. And then I did something else that I haven't told the others about. Flashback. Michael had just put Esther in a coffin and clenched his fist in anger over what had happened. I swear to you, bastard, that on my honor, my wife's grave, and the graves of my forefathers, I will not rest, until I have made you pay for what you have taken from me. Mikhail shouted to the heavens. Then he gasped, pain erupting in his chest, as an arm stuck out the front of his chest, Michael's heart in hand. Going to be a little difficult where you're going. Naruto whispered his ear as he pulled his arm back out as Michael temporarily died. That should keep him down for a few days. Naruto thought as he picked up Michael's desiccated corpse. He sped him out to a lake that would one day be called Lake Ontario. After wrapping him in thick rope, rowed him out to the middle of the lake, and dropped him in, watching as he sank beneath the surface. He then cursed himself, realizing he had forgotten to take the white oak stake from him. Naruto sighed as there was nothing he could do about it now, and rowed back to the shore before speeding back over to village, and together with Rebecca and Elijah, burned the village to cover their tracks and left for the old world. Flashback end. And we have been moving from place to place ever since. Until now. Until you. So, you see, however tormented you think you are, there is always someone out there that has it worse. Naruto admitted as he held her close to him. Aurora is stunned by Naruto's regained her composure at the prospect of their shared grief. Well, then, let us share this gift with each other. You will forever hold my deepest shame, and, Aurora caresses Naruto's face lovingly with her hand, I will hold yours. Never again shall we speak them to another soul, and never again will they have any power over us. Naruto was touched a little by Aurora's proclamation, and she pauses for a moment before continuing. Would you think it too much of me to ask one more gift on my birthday? I would give you the world. Naruto said sincerely. I have thought long and hard about what you told me weeks ago. I love you, Niklaus. When I am with you, I am at peace. I don't want to ever be parted from you. Not by my father or my brother, not by society or even the ravages of time. Aurora told him passionately. Can you live with it though? Not being able to have children with me? Naruto asks, as he believed that could be a major deal breaker. I have never felt the way I do about you with anyone else. With you, I feel as though I am whole. As long as I have you, I don't need anyone else. And if I truly wish to raise a child, we can adopt one as our own in the future. Please, turn me Niklaus. Aurora pleaded with him. Okay, Naruto whispered as he reached behind the bench and pulled out a goblet. He bit his hand, and made a fist, squeezing a good amount of his blood into the goblet. Drink all of it, Naruto told her as she took the cup and slowly drank the blood out of the goblet. She placed the goblet down and said, the next part one am admittedly frightened of. I know. Dying and wondering if you will come back can do that. Do you trust me? He asks. She nodded and he said, close your eyes. I will make it painless. She closes her eyes and hold him close as he counts down. 3, 2, 1. At 1, he breaks her neck, killing her, and gently lays her down. He then grabs and compels a guard to stand in the room quietly and not move while he waited for Aurora to wake. It was then that Rebecca Elijah walked in. For some reason. They saw the body of Aurora laying gently on the bench and Rebecca covered her mouth in horror. Nick, what is this? What have you done? She demanded. I'm giving her what she wants. Naruto said. What she wants? Nick, you've killed her. Rebecca shouts. She drank goblet full of my blood. She's merely in transition. Naruto states. You've turned her. Nick, we have many torments. None that I would dare wish on another. Rebecca shouted at him. Niklaus, she is the daughter of the man that owns this castle. Father will surely hear of this. We will have to leave now. Elijah angrily said. Then it's a good thing I've already compelled every living human within a 10-kilometer radius to ignore and never speak of our feeding. Naruto revealed, shocking Rebecca and Elijah. What? Rebecca and Elijah asks. I knew that teaching the new method was going to take time, especially with Cole and Lucian's lack of control, so I compelled everyone in this castle, in the town, and those living in the countryside with 10 kilometers to ignore it. I have bought us another year here at least. Naruto said as he stood up and walked over to them. And as for Michael, well, I know for a fact he hasn't pulled himself out of that lake that I dropped him in yet. Naruto said. Niklaus, what do you mean? Elijah said. Did I forget to mention that? Before we burned down the village to cover our tracks, I temporarily killed Michael and dumped him in the deepest lake I could find. I had a witch check and she confirmed that Michael is still drowning over and over again in that lake I dumped him in back in the new world, which means we can relax for a while. Naruto said. But Nick, she was human. She didn't have to suffer through what we have to. Why would you put her through that? Rebecca asks. Naruto turned to look back at Aurora and said, because that woman makes me feel things that no other woman has ever made me feel. Naruto even turned around and said, not even Tatia. Elijah looked a little uncomfortable while Naruto continued, this is the moment of truth every single one of us must face at some point. We are immortal apart from a weapon made of white oak. Aside from that, we will live until the end of time. Yet, when there is someone we love, we have a choice to make. Turn them if they are important enough and keep them in our life, or let them go to spare them the pain of being with someone who will never die. When you love someone as strongly as I love her, you will understand. Naruto turned around and walked back to Aurora. He stroked her face lovingly with one finger and a smile on his lips. She's going to wake up soon. The minute she turns, I imagine it's going to get very, loud in here. Naruto said suggestively, causing Rebecca to good-heartedly roll her eyes. Elijah smiled, seeing as there was nothing here for him to help with, and left. Rebecca watched Naruto with Aurora for a moment, wishing that she could find someone to love her the way Naruto loved Aurora, before leaving. It was then that Aurora woke with a gasp. Naruto was instantly by her side. Aurora, Naruto said. Nick, I have been remade into your equal. Aurora said happily, and Naruto chuckled. Getting ahead of yourself, love. One more step to make, Naruto said as he looked at the guard he had compelled earlier. Come here, he ordered, and the guard walked over to them. Don't move, and don't make a sound. Naruto compelled him. Naruto then walked around and vamped out before biting the side of his neck and taking out a big chunk of flesh. Aurora sat up, the smell of the blood invading her nose, the desire to consume it overwhelming her. Drink, and then, we will be together forever, Naruto said, and Aurora gripped the guard, licking his wound, which caused her to complete the transition and her true face emerged. She then bit the guard again and began to drink him dry. Naruto vamp sped over to the doors and locked them, making sure that nobody would bother them. Naruto walks back over to Aurora, who finishes her first meal and tosses the corpse of her victim aside. Beautiful, Naruto said as he wraps his arms around her waist and kisses her lip. Yes, and now we need never be alone. Aurora agrees as she pulls Naruto down for another passionate kiss, biting his lip so hard she draws blood. When he pulls away, a dribble of blood running down his chin, Aurora's vampire face comes out, and she licks her bloody fangs with relish. Naruto's vampire face comes out as well, and he vamp speeds them over to the nearby wall, where he pins her as he begins to kiss her roughly. After a moment, Aurora spins them, speeding them against one of the support beams, where Naruto's back slams against the stone as they continue to make out. Hours later, the two could be seen cuddling in Aurora's bed, as they had moved from the chapel into her room. That was so, Aurora sighed pleasurably as she tried to find the right words. Amazing, satisfying, divine, Naruto offered with a smirk, and she playfully slapped his chest. All of that and more. Though I think the priest will be in a mood if he saw the mess we made on the altar. Aurora said. Yes, we are quite the sacrilegious couple, aren't we? Naruto acts in amusement. I can just hear it now. Demons have defiled God's holy church. The end of times is near. The both of them laughed good-heartedly and they slept in each other's arms. 2 years later, 1004 AD. Naruto smiled in contentment. It had been 3 years since they came here. 3 years since he made this place a home for them. Thanks to the massive amount of compulsions he had placed on the populace, he had been able to extend their stay, since Cole's eating habits were still very sloppy. He had stopped being friends with Lucian, as the former servant was getting more rabid, losing himself in his delusions of grandeur. There was something else. Recently, whenever someone lies to him, he would hear a ringing in his ear in the back of his head. He was certain it was not a vampire ability, as none of the others seemed to have it, so he wagered it was the infamous werewolf ability of lie detection. Aside from that, everything had been smooth. His relationships with his siblings were strong, and he had the love of Aurora, who had chosen him over her father and brother 2 years ago when he turned her. He was even ready to take it one step further with Aurora. But he needed to do it soon. He had used a scrying spell and found that Michael had managed to pull himself out of the lake yesterday, and would soon be scouring the new world for Naruto and his siblings. Michael wasn't the sharpest tool in the shed though, so he probably wouldn't figure out they had gone back to the old world for at least half a century, so that gave him plenty of time to come up with a contingency for Michael. But right now, he was enjoying himself, just spending time with Aurora during noon, picnicking in the meadow where they first began their relationship. The two of them were sipping blood from chalices as they recounted tales of their bloodletting. And do you remember the look on that poor Mont's face? When I compelled him to dance on his brother's corpse, yet understand what he was doing, asks Aurora. The look on his face was priceless. Oh, then he proceeded to lose his lunch all over you. The nerve of the man, Naruto chuckled. Yes, he was very rude. He ruined my favorite dress, Aurora agreed. Naruto sat up and grasped her hands. I don't particularly enjoy having you go through those acts with me. But the world's a cruel place, and the only way to survive it is to be crueler. One day, you will have to get those lovely hands of yours dirty, and I want you to be ready when that happens, he says as he kisses her hands. Well, you have been a wonderful teacher, Aurora said with a hint of teasing in her voice. Oh, I'm a just teacher now, am I? He teased back as he pulled her to him and flipped her on her back for a kiss while his hands trailed suggestively along her body. Oh, we're doing this now. And what if I did this? She asks suggestively as she kissed. Cry out for help, he smiles as he kisses her. And this? She asks as she deepened their kiss while fondling his cock through his pants. Beg for mercy, he smiled before he flipped them over again as she was straddling his waist. There is something that I need to tell you, he whispered to her. What is it? She asks. Michael got out of his watery prison yesterday. He's going to eventually make his way back to the old world. It may be prudent to leave soon, Naruto told her. Well, then I will come with you, Aurora said simply, not willing to abandon the love of her life. Would you? Naruto said with a hopeful tone. Yes, my father is a monster and my brother will never let me be happy. I've even had to compel him a few times when he got on my nerves, Aurora admitted without shame. Well, that makes this easier, Naruto said to himself as he got up. I know that my family didn't grow up in the old world, but certain traditions were taught to us, Naruto said as he pulled out a small brown leather pouch from his breeches pocket. For example, if there was a woman that I loved, and I wanted to spend the rest of my life her, I would get down on one knee, Naruto says as he falls to one knee, and present her with a ring. He pulls the ring out of the pouch and places it in his open palm. I made this myself, he says as she looks at the ring with tears of joy. It was a simple gold band with a diamond on the outer part of the ring and a smaller diamond on each side of the larger one. It was simplistic yet elegant. Aurora de Martel, I have loved you for so long that I cannot imagine my immortal life without you, and I don't want to. If you would have me, I would love you for the rest of eternity. Will you marry? He asked her. Yes, of course, Aurora said as she hugged her new fiancé. The two stayed there, just basking in their happiness. Unfortunately, that happiness was about to be soured. That night, Finn rushed into their family's meeting in the courtyard, looking panicked as Rebecca, Elijah and Naruto look at him with concern. Finn furiously says, I knew it would come to this. Be it Cole's antics or Niklas's, or those creatures he has created. Elijah worriedly asks, what is it? Word has spread. Travelers from afar talk of beasts who feed on blood, and if those country imbeciles know. Finn ominously said. Father will come. We need to flee, Elijah said panicked. Naruto was more concerned about Aurora and went to find her. Elijah is about to go and get his stuff when a confused Aurora approached and asked, where are you going? Quote. He hurriedly told her, Father is coming. We have to flee. Well, then I will come with you, Aurora said. Elijah shakes his head and says, no. No, his curse is ours and ours alone to bear. Aurora is hurt by that and protests, but I am like you now. You are not our blood, Elijah firmly states and Aurora scoffs. What difference does blood make? All this talk of your sacred family bond, when I know things about him that you never will, even that which weighs heaviest on his heart, Aurora declared, shocking the elder Michaelson. Elijah angrily walks over to Aurora, demanding, what could you possibly know about my brother that I do not? What, precisely, did my brother say to you? When she remained silent, he furiously stepped forward and compelled her, speak. After Aurora tells Naruto's secret about making Michael kill Esther. He killed our mother. Niklas, Elijah asks in shock. Aurora, realizing what she's just done, begins to cry, why did I tell you? I swore to him I would keep his secret. Elijah is so distracted by processing this new information that he isn't paying attention to Aurora, muttering to himself. So, he lied to me. He's lied to us all. And yet, I love him in spite of it, Aurora passionately said. Elijah, now furious, once again lunges toward Aurora, grabbing her and forcing her against a pillar. He does not deserve your love. Elijah compels her again while Aurora is powerless to resist. You listen to me. You must only see him as the wretched, deceitful monster that he truly is. Aurora, Dazed, repeats his statement in a confused voice. I see him as the monster that he is. 20 minutes later, Naruto was in Aurora's room, explaining to her that they need to leave. Run away with you. Leave my brother, this house. Aurora oddly was saying. The world is bigger than this one castle. You'll see that when we leave, Naruto said, though he was curious why she was acting odd. Aurora frowns and says, how? As we hide, fleeing your brute of a stepfather. Always on the run, living like dogs. I think not. What? Who has turned you from me? Naruto said, too in shock to recognize the ringing in the back of his head. No, I turned from you, because I do not love you. I thought I did, but it's as if I see you clearly for the first time, and I find you a cruel, wretched thing. Pathetic, really, and unworthy of anyone's love, let alone mine. After all, your own mother turned against you. If she who gave you life could come to loathe you and then be snuffed out by your own hand, what hope is there for you? We are not alike, and I could never love you. Aurora said monotonously. It was finally then that he recognized it. The ringing had gotten very loud, as if a gong had been hit right next to him. He realized that while it might seem like she was being truthful, everything she had said were lies. And that tone in her voice. Suddenly, Naruto is very angry with himself. He should have recognized sooner. After all, she had been the expression of joy itself when he had proposed to her earlier, and yet only hours later she's done a complete 180 about how she feels about him. You've been compelled. Naruto realized as he closed the distance and placed both of his hands on her head and began to drain the magic of the compulsion away. Aurora cried in pain as it hurt, tried to wrench his hands free, but he was too strong, and drained the compulsion away. She collapsed to her knees when he did. Aurora, he asked, hoping she was okay. Suddenly, she burst into tears, and hugged her fiancé tightly, sobbing against his chest. Naruto hugged and rubbed her back as she begged for forgiveness. Oh Nick, I'm so sorry. I couldn't stop the words flying out of my mouth, words I swore I would never tell to another living soul. He compelled me to give voice to your secret, then compelled me to despise you. Quote. Shish, Naruto whispered in ear. You are okay. You are safe. But I need to know, Naruto said as he made her look at him with those beautiful teary eyes. Who did this? Who compelled you to despise me? Before you came to me, I saw your brother, she said between her sobs, Elijah. In the courtyard, Elijah, Finn, Rebecca, and Cole were gathered. Where is Niklaus? Elijah asks, expecting him to be back by now. I do not know. He probably went to find Aurora. Rebecca offered. Right, well then, Elijah tried to say but was interrupted by an enraged roar. Elijah. Naruto roared as he sped to Elijah and gave him a swift uppercut that sent him flying, knocking over a torch stand. Naruto vamp sped over to Elijah as he was about to land, gripped him by the neck and slammed his face into the ground. Naruto kneed him in the face as Elijah got up. They both gripped each other's shoulders and Elijah headbutted him, causing Naruto to stagger. Naruto pushed him into a stone column. Elijah ducked as Naruto threw a haymaker, impacting the pillar and breaking off some of it as his fist went through it. Elijah kicked him in the side and leapt up, pushing off the pillar, and punched downward, hitting Naruto's face and causing his head to swivel. Elijah grabs him and throws him over his shoulder, sending Naruto flying into a wall. You have some nerve, brother. Naruto roared. What you did to Aurora. What you tried to do to me. It was evil. I was trying to protect this family. Elijah shouted back. Aurora is the sister of Lunatic, and a powerful one at that. Father is in pursuit of us. What was I supposed to do? You should have apologized for compelling her. Instead, you compelled her again. To make my fiancé despise me. Naruto shouted, shocking all of his Michaelson siblings as Naruto punched Elijah in the face. Elijah stumbled but recovered and kicked him in the stomach. Elijah and Naruto gripped each other's opposing arms, struggling to overpower each other. Naruto let his vampire fangs out and bit Elijah, causing him to shout in pain. His head lowered and Naruto kneed him in the face, before leaping up and slamming both of his legs into Elijah's chest, making him fly towards the stone stairs. Naruto sped over to him right before he hit the stone stairs and slammed him fist into Elijah's face, making him hit the ground, causing cracks to form on the stone tiles where Elijah collided. You know, Naruto growled, Michael might hate me, but he would only kill Aurora to hurt me. But compelling her to hate me? That's low, even for him. What possible justification could you have for trying to turn the woman I chose as my wife against me? You murdered our mother, Elijah shouted, shocking Finn, Cole, and Rebecca. Oh, that, Naruto said in annoyance as Aurora came out onto the scene and stood next to him, hugging his arm. What I told Aurora was a condensed version of the truth. Here's what really happened. Flashback. The day Esther died, Naruto was at the village of werewolves, learning about their ways and history. Night had fallen when Naruto smelt blood and quickly raced to the source only to find Ansel, the alpha of the werewolves, impaled on a spike, causing his eyes to widen. Naruto looked over Ansel and saw the resemblance between Klaus and the man. With a growl he sped out of the clearing toward his old home. Michaelson Cottage. The Michaelson children all had left as Michael had returned covered in blood and proceeded to yell at their mother. You made me think that whelp was mine. You've betrayed me, and because of you Henrik is dead. You can't put that on me. What happened with Henrik was an accident. Esther yelled, only to be slapped by Michael. An accident. The bastard took him from us, and when I find him, I will rip his head off. Michael yelled before he turned to leave but heard a gurgle and turned to see that Naruto had arrived and was choking Esther with one outstretched hand, glaring at him. You murdered my birth father, Naruto growled, having actually looked forward to meeting Ansel. Release her, Michael yelled, rushing forward with the white oak stake extended forward, but Naruto moved Esther in the path of the strike, so that Michael stabbed his wife in the heart, causing the couple to go wide-eyed. Now, you lost someone too, Naruto said, speeding off as Michael cradled Esther's corpse. Flashback end. When I came upon them that night, Esther was being beaten by Michael. Naruto told them, as they listened to him in shock. And yes, I moved her in the way of Michael's attempt to stake me, but none of you know what stake it was. It was a white oak stake, the only thing that can kill us, Naruto exclaimed as they were all enraptured. I may have panicked a little and moved the closest thing in my reach to stop it from reaching me, which just happened to be Esther. I'm certainly not broken up about it. Like you, Elijah, she had a hand in crippling me as a hybrid. Elijah lowered his head in shame at that. He didn't have the courage to stand up to Michael when it mattered most. And then, before we became vampires, before I was even an adult, there was this, Naruto said as he flicked his hand and the starling necklace appeared. Do any of you recognize it? That's the starling necklace Mother made for you as a boy, Finn said as he had watched her give it him. Yes, it's the same necklace. And whenever I gripped it tight, it would call her to me. However, this necklace had a far more nefarious purpose than that, Naruto said. Did you know that werewolves, even untriggered, excel in physical tasks? For example, all untriggered werewolves are great hunters. Yet, I could not shoot about to save my life. It was after what happened some weeks before we became vampires, that I began to suspect why that was. Flashback. Klaus's pained cries can be heard throughout the forest. Esther rushed toward the sound of his voice until she finds him. He was pinned to a tree with Michael's sword, which had impaled him through the shoulder. Tell me what happened, Esther asked worriedly. I challenged him, Klaus said in pain. What were you thinking? Esther said as she began applying pressure to Klaus's shoulder. I thought if I could just best him, just once, he would see that I am worthy. Klaus weakly said. You need to hold still, Esther said in a panicked voice. She struggles a bit but was able to pull the sword out and dropped it onto the ground and immediately begins pulling bundles of moss from the tree, which she uses as a rudimentary bandage for his wounds. Klaus groans in pain and Esther tells him, Klaus, calm down. Everything is going to be fine. Klaus tells her what happened as he held up the starling necklace. He laughed at my challenge. He said he would take this from me as a prize, after defeating me. We began to fight, and he knocked me down. He cut the bird from my neck, and I grew so angry, I hit him. Again, and again. I cut him. What happened next? Esther asked with a sense of dread at what might have happened. The look on his face, I'd never seen it before. And I was so proud. Mother, I held this up. Klaus holds up the necklace, to show him I kept my prize. And then, why would he? Your father, in his rage, struck you with his sword. Esther acts. I wouldn't let him take this from me. It was your gift to me. Klaus exclaimed. You're a good boy, Niklaus. You did the right thing. Esther said. Flashback end. It was while we were here that I took this to a witch and told her what the incantation was. Naruto said, though really, he had inspected it himself. That was when I learned the necklace's true purpose. Flashback. Right before she called Klaus into the room, she cast a spell upon it. Onanda s singe unctas, onguolda, Esther chanted. Promise me you will wear it always. Esther later requested of the young Klaus. Flashback end. It wasn't meant to protect me. It made it so I could never get angry and suppressed my physical abilities. I mean, think about it for a moment. Ever since I wore the necklace, I struggled to do anything physically demanding. Yet the moment I lose it, I get angry and I'm able to best Michael, the best warrior in our village. It should have been obvious. Esther made me weak and docile, everything that Michael hated, and left me to suffer at his hands, my life constantly in danger every time he beat me. And to think, I actually like this necklace, Naruto said nostalgically as he threw it in one of the nearby torches. If even his own wife wasn't safe from Michael's wrath, what chance do you think any of you have on your own? He has a white oak stake. He will use it to hold you hostage and keep you in line, and if you disobey him, he'll kill you. So, are you with me, or would you prefer to take your chances with your abusive father? Naruto acts. They all stood still as statues. Rebecca was the first to move join him. Cole was the next. Finn and Elijah were last to join him, though Finn was because he had nowhere to go and Elijah was out of guilt. All right then, Naruto said. Get ready, we leave tonight. Elijah, Rebecca, both of you stay. I need to speak with you for a moment. Cole and Finn slowly left to get their stuff. Elijah tried to apologize to Naruto. Niklaus, Naruto held up a hand to stop him. I am not interested in hearing any excuses, Elijah. What you tried to do was cruel and it was wrong. Naruto looked at the solemn and regretful expression on Elijah's face and sighed. If you want to make up for it, go find Tristan, turn him, make him kill his father and then compel him to think he's you. I'm going to do the same to Lucian. Rebecca, I need you to go turn that girl Lucian took a liking to in the last month. I think her name was Serena. Turn her and compel her to think she is you. What are you planning to do, Nick? Rebecca asks. They will be decoys, to draw Michael's attention away from us. They will lead him on a wild goose chase around the world while we live out our lives in relative peace, Naruto said. Rebecca left to find the girl and Elijah moved to look at Naruto as he held Aurora to him. Elijah sighed in shame. Naruto had been right. What Elijah had tried to do was worse than anything Michael would have done. I swear I will earn your forgiveness and redeem myself in your eyes, brother. Both for this, and for helping seal your hybrid nature away, Elijah silently vowed as left to enact Naruto's plan. Chapter 3 Apocrypha, The Brotherhood, and Downfall. 1050 AD. Tuscany. Naruto looked out of the balcony of his castle as he stared out into the night. He was thinking about the vampire population. In the last few years, the number of vampires has doubled and increasing faster than it could be contained. He needed to do something about that and soon. But right now he had other things to concern himself with, like his wife Aurora de Martel Michaelson, who walked into their bed chambers. Naruto only had to turn around before his lips were assaulted by his wife's. Lemon. Naruto and Aurora kissed each other, kissing passionately when Naruto slipped away from the kiss and started to lay kisses on Aurora's open neck as he groped her ass. Aurora squirmed under his touch as her own hands started running through his hair. She mewled as Naruto kept kissing her neck while his hands started to roam over her body. The two kept kissing as they continued to moan into each other's mouths as they made their way over to the bed. Before long, the level of clothing she and Naruto had on started to frustrate her. Naruto kept his workings going as he felt Aurora pull away from him, and grab the collar of his tunic before she tore it off of his body, and tossed the destroyed clothing aside before she pulled Naruto into another kiss. Naruto ripped the back of her dress open all the way down to her waist and she slipped out of it to reveal her naked glory to him and pushed him onto the bed before she straddled him. I cannot stand all this clothing. I need you. Aurora growled. Naruto smiled up at Aurora as she started to grind herself along his hardening cock before he kissed her stomach up to her breasts and took her left nipple into his mouth. Aurora's breath hitched as Naruto's free hand came up and started to knead her right breast before she used her vamp speed to slide off the bed while taking Naruto's pants with her. Once she had them off, she threw them into a corner, as her free hand started to slowly pump his member eagerly. Naruto smiled as he met eyes with Aurora while she continued to stroke Naruto's cock, before she brought her other hand up and began to play with Naruto's large balls, causing him to moan, as she kept her twisting her hand and jerking him off as she started to fondle his ball sack. After 20 seconds of fondling his balls and stroking him, Naruto was full-mast at 10 inches long, 3 inches thick. He pulled her back onto the bed and flipped them over so she was on her back and he positioned himself above her as she spread her legs. Naruto kissed her neck, before he thrust forward and speared his cock into her pussy, causing Aurora's back to arch and scream slightly as she was penetrated. The tightness and wetness of her pussy, causing him to moan, before he nipped at her neck and ear. Aurora grabbed his face, before she pulled him into another kiss, as she started to roll her hips. Naruto groaned before he slowly pulled out of Aurora's hot pussy until just his head was resting in her and then plunged back in. He started a slow rhythm of pulling out and thrusting back in before he started to pick up his pace. Aurora loved the feeling of Naruto's cock pounding into her, but after being away from her one true love for a week, she wanted to be fucked stupid. As if reading her mind, Naruto's hip became a blur. As Aurora moaned when he hit her cervix, she leaned up and nipped at his neck. When she climaxed, she vamped out and bit into Naruto's neck. Naruto continued to piston in and out of her pussy before another orgasm ripped through Aurora's body as he kept thrusting into her G-spot. Once she came down from her second orgasmic high, Aurora, using her speed and strength to flip Naruto over so that she was on top, before she started to ride him. Naruto moaned before he leaned up and kissed her. Before moving to her neck and biting her, drinking some of her blood, which caused her to scream in pleasure as she climaxed for a third time, and Aurora rode him faster than before as he started to thrust up into her. After a minute, when he felt her clamp down on his member, he thrust his member into her cervix, before he shot his load into her baby chamber, which sent her tight sheath into another round of convulsing. Lemon end. After another 2 hours of fucking, Aurora laid down on Naruto's chest, as she placed soft kisses on his chest. I love you. Aurora said, happiness clear in her voice. As I love you, Naruto replied as he pulled the covers over them. There is something that I need to talk about to you about. Aurora whispered as she lay her head against his chest. What is it, love? Naruto asks. I consider myself truly blessed to be your wife, Naruto. But I have always known that deep down, you were never a one-woman man. I know while I can keep up with you as a vampire, your sexual appetite has only grown stronger and stronger as we have grown older. I don't need any other women. I love you just as strongly as when I proposed to you. You are the woman I chose as my wife. I only need you. Naruto told her passionately and with love. And I love you all the more for it, but I know you are hiding the fact that you are no longer fully satisfied with our sessions for my sake. I mean, I know I satisfy you greatly, but you're still rearing to go while I eventually get worn out. I want you to know that I've come to terms with it. Aurora told lovingly. Quote, Are you telling me to go out and get myself a harem? He asked hesitantly for clarification. That is exactly what I'm telling you. As long as you still love me and never leave me, I can live with sharing you with the other women that I know will fall in love with you. And the occasional single encounters are acceptable as well. Okay, Fine. But I'm not gonna start on this right away. Naruto said, and he and Aurora slept in each other's arms. 1 week later. Thank you all for coming. Naruto said as Cole, Elijah, Rebecca, Aurora, and the 10 covens of witches, 60 vampires, and the Ba-Rock, Mauru, and Deepwater packs of werewolves that were loyal to Naruto gathered in his throne room. Naruto had saved the covens and werewolf packs from persecution, and they pledged their loyalty to him. What is you wanted to speak about, Niklaus? Elijah asks. The vampire population is starting to explode. If something is not done, and soon, the vampire population will be too big to hide from the humans, and the majority of humans will become aware of the supernatural world, something we cannot allow. Naruto said. What can we do about that though, my lord? One of the werewolves asks. The supernatural world has nothing to govern it. In the past, this has worked out well due to there only being witches and werewolves. But the world is getting too big for that to continue. This organization that we create today will be made up of vampires, witches, werewolves, and any supernatural species that wishes to join our ranks and proves loyal. Our mission will be to govern the supernatural world and protect it from the humans, by making certain that they never discover it, and putting down any supernatural creature that threatens to expose it to the humans or breaks our laws. Naruto told. My love, what will we call this organization? Aurora asks. I'm so glad you asked, dear. This organization will be called Apocrypha. Naruto said as he laid the foundation for what would become the most powerful congregation of supernatural beings. 1114 AD. Tuscany, Italy. Naruto and Elijah walked into the town square, as Alexander, a vampire hunter, was on stage with an audience surrounding him. There were several people tied up to wooden poles and staked through the chest on the stage. Alexander paced the stage talking to the crowd. These demons live among you. Passing as human. He said loudly as Naruto and Elijah stopped in the middle of the square and watched what was going on as Alexander approached a box on the stage. So, witness with your own eyes. Breaking the lock on the box, the door fell open and a bewildered man stumbled out, wondering what was going on, only to start burning in the sun, before he was set ablaze by the burning heat, burning to death. Elijah watched before he leaned his head toward his brother and said, He's putting on quite the show. He is a snack. I could eat him for lunch. Naruto said. Still, you should heed the warning. With Cole in the east, discretion has become difficult. Stories of the original vampires are spreading. Elijah replied. Only among other supernaturals. But if you're worried about discretion, perhaps you should wrangle our brother, said Naruto as he and Elijah watched Alexander walk over to Finn, who greeted him like an old friend. That afternoon, Naruto, Elijah, Alexander, and Finn were gathered around a table partaking in a feast. As a maiden poured them some wine, I am unaccustomed to such luxury, Alexander said. Elijah, putting a grape in his mouth, chewed and rubbed his hands together before he said, Well, it's the least we could do to repay you for opening our eyes to the truth. We're curious to hear more about your order. Your crusade. We are but 5 men bound by fire by a witch to a single cause, the destruction of all vampires. Alexander said. So how do you hope to achieve this? Finn asks. We have the ultimate weapon which no vampire can survive, Alexander said with a look of absolute glee on his face, before he saw Rebecca walking in the garden, and his gaze stayed on Rebecca for a long moment. Next week, Naruto, Elijah, Cole, Finn, and Rebecca were gathered with the 5 at their home for a feast. Naruto did not trust Finn. Him and Finn had been at each other's throats for some time, and this parties was suspicious. He told Aurora to stay home because he had a bad feeling something was going to happen. They enjoyed the feast so far, and now it was time for a toast. My friends and my brothers in arms. A toast to friendship, family, and the eventual end of the vampire race, Alexander said as they all drank. It was then that Naruto and his siblings coughed up the wine. His mouth burned and he could feel his throat closing forcibly. Vervain and Hemlock, Naruto said as he struggled to breath before he was stabbed in the back with a stake. They had not been able to smell it because it was hidden within the scent of the sweet wine. Elijah, Rebecca, Finn and Cole were all desiccated with silver daggers in their chest. Alexander came up to Naruto and stabbed downward with a silver dagger. Naruto caught his hand but played it off as being too weak and allowed Alexander to slowly gain ground. Who sold us out? Naruto demanded, while pretending to be weakened. It was Finn. He hated being a filthy vampire and wanted to die, so he told us about you. Don't worry, once we complete our true mission, we will help all like you die. Alexander said as he pushed the blade into Naruto's chest and he desiccated. Alexander and his friends cheered as they gathered the vampires up in a separate room. Come my brothers, let us continue the feast. A few minutes in, Naruto woke up and pulled the dagger out. He looked at the dagger and saw ash residue. He liked it a little bit and spit it out. White oak ash. Naruto growled in anger. As they enjoyed their feast, they didn't bother to check on the originals. The door then flew open and they began to wonder what was up. Suddenly, a burning fist punched its way through one hunter's chest, destroying his heart. Naruto pulled his fist out of the hunter and picked up his sword. No. One of the brothers before Naruto threw the sword, which impaled the hunter in the chest, the force knocking him off his feet and impaling him to the nearby wall. Naruto spun and ducked under a wild sword swing and pivoted until his back was against the hunter's back. He reached behind with one arm, and jerked the hunter's head backwards, violently snapping his neck. Naruto let the body drop to the ground as blood pooled in the hunter's mouth. Naruto caught a sword aimed at his face between the palms of his hands before he wrenched it out of the hunter's grasp. He gripped the hilt of the blade and swung it in an arc, decapitating the fourth hunter. Naruto saved Alexander for last as he kicked him into the wall. Naruto sped over to him and picked him up by his collar. Alexander, desperate to get away, tried to punch him, only for Naruto to catch the fist, and pulled Alexander's middle finger so far back that he ripped it off halfway, exposing the bone. Naruto then kicked his leg out, dropping Alexander to one knee before kicking his face into the wall 3 times. He pressed his foot against the hunter's chest right above the sternum, collapsing his entire chest. Naruto then punched Alexander in the face several times and slammed Alexander's head against the wall before he charged blue lightning in his hands and discharged it into Alexander's head, who screamed as his head exploded into 1,000 pieces of blood and gore. Naruto stood up and looked at the hunters. Where did they get the ash of the white oak tree from? Naruto knelt down over the hunter whose neck he snapped. He let his true face out and bite down hard on the hunter's neck, closing his eyes. When he opened them again, they were completely red. No irises or pupil, only red sclera. He saw the Mont's entire memories, including the Bennett witch that created them to kill someone called Silas. He would have to investigate as it didn't seem like they were created for the purpose to kill vampires. They were too weak to be very effective. Naruto also made a mental note to bring the Bennett coven to heal and into Apocrypha or destroy them completely. He would not have this stupid shit happening again. He should have tracked them down when he created Apocrypha, and because he didn't, now he has to do damage control by turning vampires and witches into fiction so humans by large don't become aware of them. Well, better late than never. He walked to the room to pull the daggers out of his siblings, but paused for a moment when he saw the corpses of the hunters standing behind him for a moment. Blinking, they vanished from sight, and thinking that it was nothing, he paid it no mind. Meanwhile in Hungary, Tristan, Lucian and Serena were all sitting in the parlor of the house they were currently staying. None of them had said a word for a long while. Lucian was holding Serena and stroking her hair while Tristan concentrated on his 3rd bottle of wine. 2 years they had lived the lives of someone else. 2 years had been stolen from them. They had been used like their lives wouldn't matter. To Tristan, that however wasn't the worst part. Aurora, she had chosen the originals, chosen Naruto, over her own brother. She had betrayed him in the worst way possible. Well, Lucian murmured after a very long silence. Wasn't that a fun century? They deserve to pay, Tristan continued and took a long gulp out of his bottle. I agree, Serena murmured. I want Elijah, Rebecca, and Niklas to suffer. They all will suffer, Lucian stated, his voice held no emotion. Sounds good to me, Tristan huffed and handed Lucian the bottle. Drink. Brother. Normally Lucian would have refused, but now he took the bottle and emptied it with one long gulp. Naruto. He made a vow to find him and make him pay. No matter how long it would take. 1 year later. England. Well, this is the place. Naruto said as he found the cottage that the Bennett witch that created the Brotherhood of the Five lived, as she was living in the area of Britain that would one day be known as Plymouth. When Naruto awoke his siblings, he told them that Finn had been the one who sold them out to the Brotherhood. Finn had betrayed them, and Naruto managed to convince Cole, Elijah and Rebecca that Finn deserved to remain daggered and they went along with it. 64 years ago, the Michaelson siblings learned of his true origins, how he was from a different world and how he was supposed to be their sibling from the beginning, but since Klaus was untriggered before, he couldn't emerge. Klaus awakening his gene, then getting cursed and having his werewolf side sealed allowed Naruto, the true personality, to emerge and take over. They had taken a while to get over it, but they all accepted it. All except Finn. Now that he thought about it, that was probably when Finn started being disloyal. Anyway, the hunter's curse had given him problems when he started to hallucinate, but after he had his Apocrypha witches confirm that it was just a magical curse, he siphoned it away and that was the end of that. Now, to deal with the errant Bennett witch. Naruto thought angrily. He turned around to his wife and the two witches he had brought with him. Stay hidden until I call you. They nodded and hid in the trees while Naruto approached the cottage. He knocked on the door and the Bennett witch opened up on the other side and was immediately on guard, knowing who this is. Hello there, little Bennett. Naruto smirked. What are you doing here? The Bennett demanded. Well, I think it's time we had a little chat. You've been a naughty little witch. Now, how about you show me some proper manners and invite me in? Naruto acts. I don't think so, monster. The Bennett witch said as she slammed the door in his face. Really? Guess we have to do this the hard way. Naruto said as he raised his hands and spoke his incantation. Cha Rob Hfiam Sam Bith Air Quired. His eyes glowed as red as his spell took effect. Naruto raised his leg and kicked the door down. He groaned as the Bennett cast an aneurysm spell on him, but he cast a quick spell to cancel out the spell. He then vamp sped over to her, gripped her by the neck and threw her out into the open forest. You just had to make this difficult, didn't you? Naruto said as he stalked closer her. Stay away from me, you monster. The Bennett shouted as she used telekinesis to send him flying away. Naruto landed and slammed his hand on the ground, causing roots to rise out of the ground and wrap tightly around her arms, legs, and fingers, while wrapping around her neck and waist as well. What is this? How are you doing this? She demanded. Well, the roots thing is a secret. As for the lack of invitation, well, my mother may have sealed my werewolf side, but she neglected my other heritage, so I'm still the original hybrid, just not a werewolf-vampire hybrid. Naruto said. No, she muttered in shock and anger, you are an aberration of nature. Says the one listening to nosy spirits who stick their noses where they don't belong. Naruto said, as he found spirits to be particularly annoying that do exactly what he just said. Now, let's find out why. Naruto bit down on her throat, causing her to scream as he saw her entire life. He then understood why she did it as well as the whole story between Silas and Ketsuya. So, you broke the laws I placed down on supernatural beings because some dead ancestor of yours with a grudge against her ex-fiancé told you to. You really are dumb, aren't you? Naruto said as he wiped his lips of blood. Witches are servants of nature. We keep the balance. The Bennett witch gritted. Not anymore, you don't, Naruto said as he slapped her head right off. Are the two of you angry with me? Naruto acts as Aurora came out as well as Zoe Bennett, Zoe Kravitz, and Natalie Bennett, Natalie Emanuel, stepped out of the trees. They had been this Bennett's younger sisters, who had found him while he was searching for the Bennett witch that created the Brotherhood of the Five and begged him to not exterminate the whole line as had he been leaning towards. In exchange for only killing the one Bennett, Zoe and Natalie would join Apocrypha, along with their 5 collective children, and their lines would serve him in Apocrypha for as long as the Bennett line shall last. Not truly. She cast us out of the family simply for agreeing with the laws you place down on the supernatural world. Natalie said. It's not like it was asking for much. Not revealing the supernatural world to large groups of humans should be a given. Plus, her actions will have far-reaching negative consequences for a great many witches and innocent human women, so no. We are not angry with you, Zoe said as she looked at her sister's corpse and her true face came out. Apparently, Naruto had the ability to make normal witches into heretics, with the added ability that they gained siphoning powers. But only if they were turned by his blood in a special ritual. If any normal vampire of his line tried to turn them, they would just be normal vampires. Zoe and Natalie requested this of him after 6 months of being in Apocrypha so they could continue to watch over their family and teach every generation that is to come. It also came with the benefit that they became a part of his harem. Well, ladies, Naruto said as he pulled them to him as they rested their heads on his shoulders, let's get your family's grimoires, so the 4 of us can head back to the castle and have some fun tonight. Oh yeah, he was gonna have fun tonight. 1204 AD. Constantinople. Fire burned all around the city. It was the 4th Crusade and the city was currently being sacked and pillaged by the Crusaders. But they were just a distraction. For Michael had heard a rumor that his bastard of a stepson had come to the city and he was eager to kill him for good. Michael had already slaughtered the majority of the Strix. Elijah had gathered them with the intention of eventually bringing them into Apocrypha, something that Naruto didn't really have a problem with, as the vampires had the smallest representation in Apocrypha after he added the Paxan and Poldark packs to their ranks, but then their excessive feeding drew Michael to Constantinople. Apocrypha was already safe as they had numerous bases all over Europe now, and Naruto had come to Constantinople with the intention of inspecting the Strix and seeing if they could become a part of Apocrypha, but then he realized that Michael had been drawn here because of them. He rejected the idea, while ordering Elijah to get Rebecca and Cole to safety while he dealt with Michael. Elijah tried to convince Aya, his lover, to come with them but she refused and Elijah chose to protect his family, but vowed to come back for Aya after they were safe. Naruto sat patiently reading a book in the Forum of Constantine, his Musha dragon black katana tied to his hip as he waited patiently in his armor inspired by his trip through China and Japan from 1150 to 1153, though he was lacking the helm. Michael finally showed up as the flames got closer to the Great Palace. It's been a long time, boy. Michael derisively said as he was decked out in Crusader armor. About time you got here. I got so bored of waiting that I finished Sun Tzu's Art of War. Naruto said as he placed his book down. I half expected you to be running away like you did with the rest of your siblings. Michael taunted. I ran. Have you forgotten already how I defeated you in less than a minute after you convinced my whore of a mother to seal away my werewolf side and how I killed you and dropped you in that lake for 3 years? Or how you chased my little decoys for 30 years after my little compulsion wore off? I never ran from you, Michael. I've been waiting patiently for you to finally find me. Naruto said, making Michael grit his teeth in anger at being reminded of his humiliations at the bastard's hands. Bad enough that the bastard, who until his werewolf nature was sealed away, had never fought back before, defeated him so easily, but then he kills him and dumps him in an 800-foot lake, where he died every hour from drowning for 3 years. Then it took 60 years to figure out they had gone back to the old world, and another 79 years to figure out that he had been duped on purpose and he had been on a wild goose chase ever since. Don't you talk about your mother like that. It's your fault she's dead. Michael yelled as he drew his sword. When I came upon you that night, I found you beating her, so I hardly think you are in a position to care. Besides, it's not my fault you couldn't stop your stab. Naruto said as he drew his katana. You die today, bastard. Michael shouted in rage as he vamp sped over to Naruto. He brought his sword down in an arc but Naruto raised his sword to block it. Me, die, Naruto mocked. You must have me confused with your wife. Naruto maneuvered his sword out of the way and backhanded him into the air for several feet. Naruto advanced quickly in a dash, his feet barely touching the ground, and swung his sword down at the Viking's head. Michael blocked it with a grunt. He shoved Naruto back and swiped at his stomach, which Naruto parried. Naruto sliced Michael's neck, but Michael blocked with a vertical guard. Michael swung his sword down with two hands as hard as he could. Naruto did not attempt to block it, instead used his superior footwork to maneuver out of the way. Naruto then tried to end it by stabbing Michael in the chest, but Michael parried him. Naruto's attacks began to resemble a flurry of blades as Michael managed to match his speed but was pushed back slowly until his back hit the wall. Michael kicked Naruto in the stomach as he let the barrier down, which sent him into the air, but Naruto flipped around in the air, landing on his feet, and quickly unleashed a powerful gust of wind from his hand, sending Michael crashing into the wall. Naruto vamp sped over to Michael and delivered a two-handed downward sword swing on him, which the Viking blocked from his kneeling position. Michael forced Naruto off and managed to get to his feet before he was immediately assaulted again by Naruto's brutal flurry of attacks. Michael was forced to stay on defense. Naruto used a uppercut with his sword to knock Michael's sword out of his hands, but the Viking deflected the blade, and spun to regain position. Naruto brought his sword down on Michael's with one hand, which was blocked, before spinning around, his twirling sword meeting Michael's 2 times, before Naruto finished his spin and sliced at Michael's chest, which was blocked. Naruto swiped at Michael's legs, which was parried, before swinging to decapitate the Viking, though Michael managed to block it, and force Naruto's blade to the side. Michael stabbed at Naruto's chest and Naruto parried him. Michael grabbed Naruto's free hand before he brought his blade down. Naruto brought his blade up and defended himself in the awkward position. Naruto blasted Michael with a quick burst of blue lightning, forcing him off and allowing Naruto to regain his position. Naruto's storm of strikes and slices fell upon Michael and forced him across the forum. Naruto and Michael locked blades for a moment and Naruto maneuvered it out the way. Naruto brought his sword down in a one-handed overhead strike while channeling lightning through his blade. The enhanced katana sliced through Michael's sword like butter and cut through his chainmail, ribcage and left lung. Then he chopped Michael's right leg and arm before he threw him against the wall of a nearby building, holding him with one hand by the neck. Michael then pulled out the white oak stake and tried to stab Naruto in the heart, but Naruto grabbed the wrist and held him there. "So, you brought it after all," Naruto said, very happy with this. "I will kill you, bastard," Michael growled as he struggled to breath with Naruto's hand wrapped around his throat. "You first," Naruto said before he broke Michael's wrist and grabbed the stake before he stabbed Michael in the heart, causing Michael to scream in pain. Naruto placed his hand on Michael's chest and breaks off a small piece of the stake that isn't buried in the bastard's heart. Naruto pocketed it away as Michael's body burns to ash. He examined the piece that he broke off. Too small to be used as a weapon but definitely big enough for a certain spell he had in mind. As he walked away, whistling as he tossed the white oak in one hand, a jar containing Michael's ashes in the other and the city burning around him, he didn't notice that Michael's limbs that he cut off did not burn and somebody had grabbed them. New World, 1205 AD. "My love, what are we doing here?" Aurora asks as she had come with him on a trip to his old home while Rebecca and Elijah managed his empire. "There is something I have been planning for you for the last century, Aurora," Naruto said as they walked into the forest until they came upon a stone pillar with a stone goblet. "What is this place?" Aurora asks as it didn't seem special. "This is hallowed ground, where it all began. Where my mother created the vampire race under the shade of the infamous white oak tree and turned us into vampires," Naruto explained. "And you mean to replicate that spell? For me? You intend to make me an original?" Aurora asks. "I intend to do more than make you into an original. I'm going to upgrade both of us. Took me 6 months to figure out how," Naruto said as he bit his hand and squeezed until he had enough of his blood in the chalice. "Blood of a powerful Michaelson warlock," Naruto said as he pulled out the small piece of the white oak stake he had taken from when he killed Michael. "Then I had to get this." He dropped it in. "What about your siblings?" Aurora asks. "I would make some for Elijah, Rebecca and Cole, but I only have enough white oak for the 2 of us. If I ever find more, I'll give them the upgrade as well," Naruto said as he pulled a small leather satchel filled with some of Michael's ashes. "The ashes of an original vampire killed by white oak," Naruto said as dumped them in. And finally, the magic of the old religion, a powerful lost form of magic practiced by the Morgana Pendragon, the Druids, and Merlin himself in the time Camelot. Naruto announced as his eyes glowed red. With this, I will perform a spell that will not only make you an original, it will take away our weakness to wood and white oak, and you will be able to access the powers of ancient vampires much earlier. Now, please stand back. I need to concentrate, Naruto said as Aurora did so, and he closed his eyes and began chanting. Dinan and Ordu, Thawar Dirmid Gu Fiod Mor, Tabartas Kumhachid Nanoon. Dinan and Ordu, Thawar Dirmid Gu Fiod Mor, Tabartas Kumhachid Nanoon. Dinan and Ordu, Thawar Dirmid Gu Fiod Mor, Tabartas Kumhachid Nanoon. Dinan and Ordu, Thawar Dirmid Gu Fiod Mor, Tabartas Kumhachid Nanoon. Naruto opened his eyes and they glowed red as blue flames rose into a pillar from the cup for a minute before they receded, leaving only a dark blue liquid in the stone chalice. Naruto pulled out 2 chalices and filled them until every drop of the liquid was in the chalices. He handed one to Aurora. They clinked their goblets and drank every last drop. Now what? Aurora asks. Now, the final step is to die by a wooden staking, Naruto said as he pulled a stake, handed it to his wife while taking out his own. He prepared to stab himself when he noticed she was hesitating. Do you trust me? He asked and she nodded. Then on 3. 1, 2, 3. Naruto said as they both plunged the stakes into their hearts and they desiccated. A few minutes later they woke up gasping. Naruto rose first and his true face emerged, which the only that changed was that his sclera stayed white and his irises were now searing red. How do you feel, wife? Naruto said as he leaned next to her. She looked at him with her true face, which sported the same normal sclera and searing red irises as her husband. Magnificent, she said. She stood up and wrapped her arms around his neck and he around her waist. Happy anniversary, darling, Naruto said as they shared a kiss.